thank you again for joining me on a Friday night. No guests tonight, but I thought we could talk about my own personal ideas about speculating in the run up to the patch. The the point being to look at it from a few different perspectives, try to cover some bases for things that people are already doing, and maybe make a few bucks for the people who like to watch my stream, and so you guys can be in on the secret if I can find any secrets. As always, the show notes are public. The Google Doc is. I need to put that in the channel pane, so I'll remember to do that later. The You can catch the streams afterwards on YouTube. I know I haven't posted up the last week's worth. I just haven't had time to slice and dice them. I will put up the raw ones first thing tomorrow or last thing tonight, and work on getting the processed ones for my guest streams. Like last Friday, we had Sugar Kyle from the CSM on the stream. Tuesday, we had K162 on the stream, where we did a live broadcast of Hydrostatic Podcast. And Wednesday was both Mina and Fuzzy Steve of the CSM talking about general Q&A from you guys to them. And so there's a lot of really good content there. I have just been completely swamped with real life because just it's busy. So the theme of tonight's stream, again, is speculation, and instead of going on and rambling and working around in circles and stopping back because I forgot something, I actually have show notes tonight. So I'm hoping that this makes the whole endeavor better. Also, on the live stream on the video part, we're putting up a new tower in LowSec to go test out the Thucker component array. Also, we'll get into some of the blueprint prep. Some of this stuff is here as visual aid for part of my chat. So, as always, feel free to post comments and questions in the stream or on Twitter to @HlibIndustry. And I'm going to go ahead, and before we start everything, there was a bit of a chat before the stream started with Zulu Squad asking about invention. And so just to rehash what he asked about, the general question was, how does industry play? And as I've said on the stream before, it's better. It's not great. I'm not super ultra happy with it, but there are so many things up in the air with invention, and also that it's sort of been a public secret that invention is going to get retuned, hopefully by the end of the year or shortly thereafter. So it's worth sort of approaching it with a little bit of leeway. I'm a big fan of the particular UI elements, and I can actually switch to one where we can walk through invention. So the one thing I haven't figured out yet is that we're supposed to be able to install jobs from history. Like if you've installed a job before, you should be able to reinstall it. And I'm still having trouble getting that to totally work. But let's give it a try. So we'll mess with the job filters so we can actually see our historical jobs. Maybe. Filters are still broken, so the notes. So here's an invention job we did before, well, I did before, and it's showing all red, which is weird, because I am more than certain there is plenty in the thing. And the start button should then let me install a new job, but it's not letting me, so this is still kind of messy. So let's go actually look at a... We'll step through invention just for the sake of the question. That's still not pulling it up, so that's still a bug. Okay. So the interface is pretty reasonable. I still don't like that this output location hasn't been saving. So now that I'll go try to start up a new job. Oh, it actually is saving. So I should be able to just select blueprints and it's auto-selecting the right thing. So that's actually a pretty big improvement. The other thing worth noting is that we're using one run per copy when we invent. So this one has been invented twice off of. So instead of having 300 as 298. The other thing worth noting for the longer run is that the job duration is much longer than previously. Grayscale is balancing it out so that the time is roughly... The time of copy plus invention is about half of full manufacturing. And so then when you factor in the 50% success rate, you should get to research time costing about the same as manufacturing time. I have explained on my blog my personal feelings on that, particularly that I think the balance should be like 0.45 or 0.35, whatever the sort of the lowest skill level as a timer multiplier as opposed to the 0.5, just because I think that it would help. I want to be able to incentivize having good skills, but since it's sort of rote that everyone gets to all fours and all fours for modules gets you to 50%, I'm probably going to lose that battle. So as you can see, the selecting and installing jobs is actually really easy. I'm doing it in 2 clicks. It's automatically selecting the right facility. It's keeping the right input and output information. I'd like very much if these grayed out in use blueprints went somewhere else, but you know, it's mostly fine. The other thing is that when you deliver invention jobs, we don't get the spam of you got success or you failed. You know, that whole series of spam windows that I ended up just pressing enter and trying to wear out the key on my keyboard. So I hope this answers the question about invention. There's also still the bug that runs as one, so I should go and report that too. Then Rip a Shell, asked about the refining formula, and I haven't messed with that very much, but yes, the equation is getting much more obnoxious, and The idea being that one, there's no such thing as perfect. So even if you go to the very best stuff with the very best skills, you won't be getting perfect yield. But high sec is going to be a bad place to be refining anything. I want to go work on that in its own stream because talking about refining ties directly into capital manufacturing. So I'm going to see if I can get the setup done for Saturday to maybe do that, but no promises yet because it's going to take. I got to move a bunch of stuff all over the place, and I don't know exactly what it's all going to end up being. And then the follow-up question is when this will be live on Tranquility, and the answer is on July 22nd is when Crius is set to drop. And I wholeheartedly expect them to stick to that date. At this rate, we've got 80%, more than 80% of the features are working well enough to just do the 20% tweaking. So I don't expect any delays on that rollout. I am still hopeful that we'll see some more updates on the server because, like I said, there's some UI tweaks that I keep coming back to. My personal one that if it doesn't get changed, I will be particularly mad about is that I think this bottom half pane needs to be undockable because this is a lot of screen real estate. And if for instance if I run all active jobs, I can run something like 200 active jobs at a time. It's absolutely absurd. And if I have to go through 200 frickin' posts of this, I'm gonna throw a shit fit. The thing that's not showing on the bottom anymore, but that's okay, is that there's also a deliver all button that will show up, which is great. I'm a big fan of that, but it's not showing up because there's nothing to deliver. So, also, I need to double check that POS math is actually working, and that's just another bug hunting that we're really not going to focus on tonight. So, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and get right into the meat of what am I doing personally to prepare for Crius? And the answer is rather multifold. The very first thing on my to-do list right now is the blueprint changes. Is that I want to be extra super sure that when the changes go live, that oh, thank God that's working. That all of my blueprints are at the levels I expect them to be at, and I'll be able to do all of the work I need to do without missing a beat on day 0. The ones I care most about, and I'm wondering if I can actually see those from. I doubt I can see them from inside my ship hold. So I may have to go rent an office. Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay. And which one doesn't point down? Like that one. Let's go there. The blueprints I'm most worried about is my component collection. So to do industry at the scale I've found that parallelism is really the secret to success. When doing component builds particularly, I really want to minimize that amount of time, and since I have 7 or 8 characters I can push on these kind of builds, then it makes a lot of sense to try and optimize that. So the plan here is to double check all of the. I'm gonna, but I want to double check all of the values of all of my component blueprints to make sure that one, I'm at the perfect ME, which is now an actual number, not just roundy math sort of lookup thing. And I want to make sure that my TEs are as perfect as I can possibly get them, in the hopes that I just have a perfect set of these blueprints. And this also gives me an opportunity to expand my personal stash. I started originally when I ran a industry corp, making sure that we had 10 of every component blueprint, all of them. So the reactor units, the pulse units, the shield units, the armor units, 10 of everything. Further down the line, in my own particular brand of industry, I found that I was buying low margin things off the market. So stuff like reactors, shield mods tend to be sometimes. Sensor arrays tended to also be low margin and high hours. So I'd be buying those things, but then I would need a lot more armor plates. So I ended up expanding my collection to be sort of like 20 or 30 of, well, I haven't got to 30 of any of them yet. 20 of like armor plates and 20 of some of the weapon ones, because if you're going to do weapons, large weapons in large amounts, it helps to have more of those. So the this whole F you. Come on, there we go. And then I'll try and crash my client. Now, I haven't been as active as I should be on the forums to try and figure out what the conversion ratios are, but that's on the to-do this weekend. Next, after I do the component BPOs, because they're my bread and butter. Oh, and I might as well show them as they are. Owned by Corp. Station. Oh, I would really love a grouping thing. So as we can see here, these particular blueprints, after the direct conversion from TQ to CC during the mirror, have perfect time efficiency, but are only halfway to material efficiency. Now, the reason they are that way is that in Tranquility right now, rounding is done on a per job basis, so I don't need more than 5% efficiency, because then the rest of it rounds out. Going forward, this is not appropriate in Crius, because the rounding will be done when the entire job is installed. So, for instance, if I have 5% loss, and that turns into a 0.4 unit, for instance, on this tungsten carbide. I ended up with something like I need 9.4 units of tungsten carbide. It will round down to 9 in singularity in tranquility for every single run I do forever. If I want to install 10 of these on tranquility, I'm going to use 90 tungsten carbide. If I try to do it here in Crius, I'm going to need 94, for instance. So if I try to do 10, I'll need 86. Because why? That doesn't seem right. It should be 96. Because I shouldn't be getting any special treatment from the line. So that, I think, is a bug. But this could be reduced further. If I go to 100, you can see that oh, I see what it's doing. So it's actually 8.6 that rounds up to 9. And if I do 100, it's actually 8.55. If I do 1,000, we see that the actual rounding error shows up. So if I want that to be 8,000 instead of 8,550, I need to get the last 5% worth of research onto this blueprint. The reason I want to do that before, why I want to do that on Tranquility today rather than Crius tomorrow, is that the research, doing research is not linear anymore. We cannot just add 10 points whenever we feel like it. Each point is like leveling up. So if I go and I look at the material efficiency here and I try to increase the level, you'll see that to get it to 6, which to get it to 6 is only going to take 58 minutes. To get it to 7 is going to take 3 times that, 2 times that. It's going to take 8 hours to get to 8 points. It's going to take 21 hours to get to 9 points. And 2 days and 4 hours to get that final 1%. That technically might be shorter than TQ, but I'm also going to spend 9 million on researching it. And if I try to do that times 10, times the 10 blueprints I have, that's 90 million ISK I'm burning. So rather than spending that cash and burning the extra time, which I think the time is going to end up washing out to be the same, totally by coincidence. The cost to re-up my library is going to be prohibitive when Crius drops. So that's my first major tip, is that if you have the means to do it, I would be putting research on blueprints now rather than later. Going forward, it should be easier to add points of research. And personally, for a lot of my secondary blueprints, I will only be doing minor research. Let's see if I can see like a thorax. Those are 0. Can I do like ship? Oh, here, we'll do it this way. Oh, come on, they're not all 10, are they? Well, we lucked out. My point was going to be that for a lot of these, I don't care if they're 10%. Um, but like if I wanted to go bring this thorax to 10, I need 88 days and half a billion-esque. You can do it for a lot cheaper on Tranquility right now. That's the point. Get your research done now. The second one is that for my own personal project, which I'll talk about at the end of the stream, I'm going to need some other higher price blueprints. And if I want to do research traditionally, so where the BPO doesn't need to be risked and I can just do the research privately, I might as well just do that now. And it also helps that capital blueprints, researched capital blueprints, should be on the cheap right now because most people decided they're going to get out of the capital manufacturing game because they're wimps. So their loss is your gain. If you have the money, I would advocate getting a set of researched capital blueprints while they're cheap, because I don't think they're going to stay cheap. Then the last part that I touched on the other character during the invention steps is that since invention's only going to consume one run per invention cycle, it's going to be a big leg up to have these high run copies already available. I already have something like 10 freaking thousand copies, and I will be making sure that my collection is filled out. The one I'm worried about is trying to get ships. I might still be SOL for ships, but it might be better afterwards than it is now. Actually, it should be better for ships moving forward. So, one thing that's on my to-buy list right now is a set of freighter BPOs, so that I can start doing copies, so I can start feeding a jump freighter operation. I may not pull the trigger on that because the lowered cycle time and easier access to copies might make those copies on contracts almost worthless. So I may just go with that instead of my own private copies. The only thing that makes me want to buy personal freighter originals is that if I'm going to build them, I need the originals to be able to build them. So that's the first step of my dastardly scheme to win at Crius, is blueprint consolidation. To rehash, that's making sure that the blueprints you use and you want to use are already researched to a reasonably high level, because the costs are going to go up. To pick up capital blueprints if you can afford them, because they will be cheap, and if you think you can use them, then go ahead. And then also to get copies for modules specifically while the getting's good. So, moving on to the next step. I'm not going to be able to show off. Actually, I may be able to. I need to log in another client. The next thing that every industrialist should be doing in the interim between now and when Crius launches is review their stockpile. I personally am so against stockpiles, it's not even funny. I find them to be... I understand that if you know what you're doing and you stockpile well, they can be a boon. But so many people have no freaking clue what they're doing that stockpiling just ends up being cash that is stuck and is hard to cash out. So Personally, my stockpiles are reasonably light, except I have one problem. And that one problem is decryptors. Now, if you tuned in on Wednesday, we talked at considerable length with Mina about, and Fuzzy Steve, about how Tech 2 blueprints are changing going forward, and how this sort of makes decryptors obsolete. So just to illustrate, if I queue up an invention job, my resultant blueprint has a positive ME and a positive TE. And this means that the actual cost of doing business is going up. So all of these are going to be tweaked, most likely to land with decryptor-free invention. Will probably be... You'll probably use the same materials just about pre and post. The change, though, means that existing BPOs, their advantage is greatly diminished, because they'll only have a 2 to 8% material efficiency boost over their invented counterparts. Now, they will have one more thing that invented blueprints don't have, and that is to be able to leverage the lowered job costs by installing many runs, because this job cost number will be augmented by number of runs. But that advantage is still only going to account for a few percentage points. So if I go and I start messing with different decryptors, we can see that the outcomes all change. Now we have a +7 time efficiency and a +2 material efficiency, which should match the... And we see that the runs has gone up by 1, and the material efficiency has gone up by 2, and the time efficiency is up by 10, which isn't... Oh, no, it's because it's +5. Yeah, so this is working as advertised, except that decryptors pay for themselves on TQ right now, mostly on the material efficiency. The only ones that pay for themselves directly through time efficiency are on ammo, because the large ammo takes so long to build that you get better ISK per hour using a higher efficiency, getting the higher PEs. So in this case, we're only adding 2% to the ME, and there's no way that I have no idea how much these are worth. There's no way that that's worth 4 million ISK for much more than larger Tech 2 ships. So, getting back to it, my personal stockpiling is of data cores and decryptors. I like to stockpile data cores because the prices, though they fluctuate, they don't fluctuate very wildly. As soon as a decryptor becomes expensive, everyone in faction warfare cashes out in the hopes that they won't be the last one holding the bag. So let's go look at my personal stockpile. And then the other half of the number two part of my stockpile is decryptors, just because it's a convenience thing. I know that I'm losing money to holding on to them because I'm not playing the market, but they account for so little of my overall costs because they go into larger Tech 2 ships that I just pay it no mind. It's just a cost of doing business, especially since the changes that brought up um, that that brought up so much more exploration means that there's no reason not to, you know. Oh well, whatever. You're not going to see what the stuff is. And it's a hound, by the way. The third thing I stockpile because they're too useful not to stockpile is blueprints. So I stockpile blueprint copies and completed Tech 2 invention. Uh, the hope is that I can have enough T2 BPCs in stock that if there's something particularly juicy on the market, all I have to do is get the materials and I can pounce on it in a day rather than 3 or 4 or 7, depending on how efficient your particular line is. And though this works for ships, I just am not active enough to handle it on modules. Going forward, I expect to have more module copies laying around, I hope. But that's because I will not have to invest in copy time, and I'll be able to leverage more invention time. So it's not a direct. It's only because of another efficiency that I'll actually have this. The So with all of the changes, let me go pull up. We'll actually go into the hangars and take a look. So it's like if we just look at Galente decryptors, for instance, I have like 100 million in decryptors, 150 million in decryptors. And though the additional run versions I think are going to be valuable going forward, I don't think the max. Please open up a second window, or I guess it's not a feature. Though I believe the max run ones are going to be valuable going forward, I don't think the maximum ME ones are going to be. So it's going to behoove me to liquidate some of this stock. But that still leaves me with just boatloads and boatloads, like 31 Crow, identical Crow blueprints. And yeah, they have 4 runs, and they have a lowered PE and a higher ME, so I'm sure they'll still be useful going forward. Creating new ones, I don't think is going to be worth it. So, and my personal favorite long-held torch. Let me go look it up. The one I've been holding on to for a year now is hoping that Sleipnir's would be useful going forward. Sadly, they won't be. But the price should go up. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. If it hasn't reset yet, I would get in on it because they're going to get a lot more expensive. Don't take my advice if you don't like losing money. I am super bad at speculation. That's your disclaimer. Uh, so that's what I'm going to do with my stockpile. Just to review, one, I want to dump decryptors because I don't think they're going to be as useful until decryptors get balanced again, and it will be cheaper to dump them now and buy new ones when the changes are announced than it will be to hold on to them through the next 4 to 6 months. The next one is to look at BPCs, both Tech 1 and Tech 2. It's worth noting that it will behoove people to have existing copies for modules. Less so for ships. Ships should be cheaper going forward. And the last thing, I forgot to touch on this, I'm glad I made show notes, is that with the retirement of slots, we shouldn't need as much lab hardware out in space. And that means that if you wanted to, and you believed that this was the best for you, you could get a small tower and just put up one of each of the labs you need. And so you'll pay for small fuel, and you should save yourself from taxes, but you will probably pay slightly higher job fees. If you are crazy and you want to go into a bigger optimization thing, they have also announced that anchoring and onlining extra labs will lower the job costs incurred. So if I switch back to Singularity, that one. This final job cost gets a structure type bonus. So I could min-max my tower by putting on extra industry modules. As a spoiler for how I think it's going to actually end up, not that I've done the math, is that I think it'll be worth doing in high sec. I wouldn't do, and okay, actually let me break it up. If you are wanting to drop a tower near a market hub, especially if you want to do it in the same region as the market hub, I would only drop as much tower as you're willing to lose. I think these moons will be valuable, and though I don't think every moon will be filled, I think that it's inviting a war deck if you are in the same region as a major hub, especially Jita. I think all of those moons will end up being used. If you're not in Jita and you find a good spot that you want to be in that doesn't also have NPC research and a low number of moons, that would be the other group that I'd be very careful with. If you're in one that you can be a little less diligent with, I would absolutely go with a large tower. Well, if you can get enough stuff through it, I will be going with a large tower with a min-maxed setup. This is because I have 8 characters to use, and I believe that I can offset the job costs. I can offset the fuel by save job cost, and I need the bonuses anyway, so I think it will end up being a net positive for me. If you're dropping towers in low sec, I would absolutely only drop one lab, and then Dick Star the frickin' tower. It's not worth compromising tank on your POS to give yourself a little bit extra in the job cost arena. Also, I'll get back to the low sec production at the end. So the next step on my how to succeed at Crius and get rich doing so plan is to do my annual asset consolidation. So it becomes very easy to scatter your money and assets all over Eve and then find out that, Where'd all the money go, man? So right now, I'm sitting on a lot of extra equipment from supplying Aderon uh, trying to supply Aderon their fitted ship contracts, and I also, like I said before, have stockpiles of stuff that are worth selling off. So, in my opinion, it is best to have cash on hand, and that will largely beat um, out most of the other material changes from like stockpiling and trying to be smarter than everybody else. My caveat there would be if I weren't anticipating using a lot of minerals. So if I were going to go into heavy freighter production or hedge for capital production, I would buy low-end minerals because I think they're still going to go up in value. And it may not be very much. You're probably just going to lose what you gain in taxes. But it's not an entirely terrible idea. So, the second thing you want to do for asset consolidation is to do any of your market speculation you're going to do anyway. Like I said, I'm only doing a little bit just to get my stuff evened out, but I don't expect to be leveraging more than 20% of my ISK. The last thing I'd like to say before anybody gets any crazy ideas is that traditionally people have put their money in Plex because Plex is appreciated at a great rate. It is in bubble territory, and if you go in with the idea that Plex can only go up and you lose your shirt, not my fault. So I will not be putting my money into Plex. If I had more cash on hand, I would be buying some Plex and cashing that out right now. As it is a game of hot potato, and somebody is going to be stuck when the party comes down. I don't expect it to go down below 600, but I expect to have people lose significant percentages of their wealth. So don't play in Plex unless you are crazy or know what you're doing. The next section that in my personal plan is to reevaluate how I'm doing. Before I go on, Alien Tarot is asking, should you grind sex status to get a pos? And the great news, the excellent news, the best news ever to come out of the frickin' thing, you don't need standing to drop a pos. You still need a corp, there's still corp assets, but you can drop a tower anywhere, just about. There will be exceptions, I believe, for any system that can't do player-owned POCOs. So, there is no reason to be trying to drop a POS before patch. I personally will be selling off several of my sticks because the way it had been traditionally is that if you had the opportunity to drop a POS, you said, well, I had to pay a guy to give me standing, or I had to kick everyone out of my corp. I can't just drop one POS. What if? So let me go and drop 2 or 3 or 4, or in my case 8. And the rules still stand. It's 1 per moon. You'll still need to pay for charters in high sec. The weirdness about 0.4 is going away, so the fact that you needed standing and charters and you couldn't moon mine in 0.4 are all going away. So that should be a small land grab to go get on moons in 0.4 systems. But the general need in high sec for towers is going to go down. So more people will own towers, but people will own fewer towers each, is the way I expect it to go. So my point on towers that I really want to be super clear about is that the risks that exist today in of dropping a high-sec POS are going to pretty much stay the same. So if you try to drop a POS in a system that has very few moons, if you try to drop a POS in a system that is in region with a major market hub like the Forge or Domain or Metropolis, if you try to drop it somewhere where there's a lot of traffic, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to have to defend it. Just know that that's the cost of doing business. The extra one I would the extra one I would be extremely careful about is watch out for systems that have both NPC manufacturing and NPC research stations. So, crud, I can't even remember the system we lived in. There's a lot of systems out there. I want to say Kubanin is one of them. I don't honestly remember. But there's a few systems out there that have, there's some percentage of systems that have everything in them. And the moons in those systems are going to be really valuable. So if you don't want to fight for it, you should not put a tower there. I still think it will be reasonably cheap to get a system that has a manufacturing array, that has a NPC manufacturing in it. I think that you will be mostly fine as long as you're not trying to drop somewhere that already has a reason for people to be there. So ice belts and level 4 agents, and you could probably get away with market spokes, those kind of things. And so Francisco Belacqua is asking why you would only need a small tower and a single one of each lab. And as I explained a few minutes ago, and maybe you guys weren't tuned in, that's fine, is that since you don't have slots anymore, so today, if we go look at Tranquility, and if I actually switch the stream to look at Tranquility, and we go try to install, there are slots, and those slots can have already jobs in them, and if I try to install a job, it will have to wait until that job completes. Going forward in Crius, there will be no slots. The only thing that will deter you from never mind. So Francisco just clarified that why do you want to worry about systems that have both NPC manufacturing and NPC research? The reason I would be afraid of those is they are perfect for corporate level industry. Since to use a blueprint at a POS, the blueprint will need to be in the module at the POS. So if we go look at CC, excuse me, and if I'm looking here at the POS and I try to go look at something that's in one of the stations nearby, and I try to install that job from here, can I queue a different facility? There you go, design one. So if I try to, if you look up here, up in the corner it says that I'm trying to use a facility that the blueprint is not at. The blueprint is currently in a station. as we can see right here. Not that it's obvious elsewhere. I can't install it there. So if I want to use blueprints at the POS, I need to either risk the originals inside the POS, which comes with its own pile of problems, or I need to have a abundant supply of copies to be able to use the bonus from the manufacturing arrays. So for the amateur and middle rung industrialist, it's going to behoove them to have copying an NPC copying station, so they don't have to unlock their blueprint originals. They can just copy them. And then having local manufacturing means that they have the option for that being available. It's not super important, but I have used it in the past because of Tech 2 shipbuilding, and I still don't know what I'm going to do for Tech 2 shipbuilding. Being able to build in an NPC station means that in the worst case scenario, you won't have to worry, because if you get a war deck, the jobs are still running. So if you have both manufacturing and research in the same system, you're going to say, oh, well, this is perfect. I can make copies. I can build at the POS. If we get attacked, I can retreat to the manufacturing station. My guys can do their individual jobs at the manufacturing station. They might even be able to do I might be able to do stuff that I don't care about, having an extra material modifier there, or the job cost will be lower. Like, that is it opens up a new set of options. I think they're going to be valuable. I think they're going to be overvalued, so people are going to want them and not realize that that's not exactly what they want. But like, there was a system when I was trying to find the system I use right now in game, that it's like 2 down. It's either Kubanin or it's something. I don't honestly remember. But it only has 7 moons, and it has research, and it has manufacturing. And so this was perfect, and there were no open moons. So if it's a scarce resource, you're going to have a bad time. Now, if it's like Sheenan's, for instance, that's the system I was trying to think of earlier. That one has like 60 frickin' moons, and it has 2 research facilities and 1 manufacturing facility. It's in the ass end of nowhere, so freighting out there would be interesting. So you should expect somewhat lower job costs. They might wash out on that one. Being able to drop a POS without being harassed, and having access to NPC utilities for having that option open. So that's why I would be careful. I'm probably being overly careful trying to do the whole game theory thing, but that's my opinion. So I'm still not sure what I'm going to do for my own personal industry. So traditionally what I have done is Tech 2 building, and if I bring up my accounting sheet, I'll go ahead and share that. So in my particular manufacturing thing, I do heavy T2 manufacturing. And this is reliant on a whole system of tools to help make it easier to make decisions. So I have calculators to help track accounting, which is what this one does. It helps me track my week over week investments and outcomes and all that. Actually, and I've redone this in the hopes that I'll actually use it in the future, but that's a topic for another time. And then I also have some personal code tools that help me figure out what materials I need to buy and Like, there's a whole lot of automation under the surface that helps me spend a moderate amount of time out of game, so on break at work or stuck at a social thing that I don't care about. I can go mess around with the numbers and then come into game and actually just work on work in game. So my personal work is going to hinge on rewriting all of these tools. And I want to say it's going to be easy. And for a bit of it, it's going to be. So the ME calculations should become much easier, and I should be able to actually automate that going forward, even in Google Docs. Since they're getting rid of extra materials, and all materials will be affected by material efficiency bonuses. The math for doing just the regular materials needed equations should be really easy. The problem is that the job cost calculation, the teams calculation, and the time and the new time calculations are not accounted for in my current sheets, and I've never really gone to try and put those in my current sheets. So to get the full picture going forward is not just going to be about materials. I know that here, well, I'll share one of my favorites. Doing industry traditionally has been reasonably easy, right? We go in, we have a spreadsheet, and it takes forever to load because you put too many features into it. And here, I do share. This one is public, so let me share it. And the math is reasonably easy, right? We go and we say, well, sorry. I have to pause just a sec. G to G to G to G, okay. A lot of this is easy. We just go and we run over here and we check and say, oh, well, what's the best margin? Oh, look, 72% for Tyrannuses, and they sell this many a day? Sweet. Print them. Because the only thing that you care about in accounting is this final material number, right? I know that we have to pay for POS, and you have to pay for hauling, and you have to pay taxes on your sales, but those are so small. Like the POS fuel is not rounded into every single equation. You figure it out at the end of the month. The taxes, well, I mean, you can account for those, and I probably should, but there's no reason to be. They don't account for very much of the margin. As long as your margin is healthy, life is perfect. And hauling, well, I mean, if you're not at the ass end of nowhere, Red Frog is still pretty cheap, even though they keep jacking up their prices. And if you don't like their prices, you can do public contracts, and people are more than happy to move equipment for you with complete coverage in collateral. So when it came down to doing production, there was only one number you had to figure out, and that was, what is my material cost? Personally, I also figure out what my net gain was as well, because I want to try and make more net money in the end, because if you try to cash in 10 billion-esque on manufacturing, it's hard. It really is hard. I know it sounds like a white wine, but if I want to build 10 billion worth of stuff, yeah, I could go here with Oh, that's a bad example. Where's one that's not upside down? I could go for a higher margin that is less money to spend, but that's more effort. And if I go over here and run and build more runs, I can actually make more money. And by investing more money, I'm making more money. So that's the end goal there. And so those equations are still only one or two factor. Now going forward, I not only have material costs and taxes and pos fuel, so I already have those. I have job costs, which should account for something like let's say 5% or 6%. And so am I just going to shave 5 or 6% off of this final yield? Am I just going to throw that away without trying to optimize it? Am I going to pay 7 or 8% by not having a efficient POS? Am I going to pay 10% or 15 or 10% or 11%? I think it goes up to 13 by trying to be right by JITA, because now there's no slots. There's nothing stopping me from just producing enormous amounts of material without any interruption. I mean, there are choices, but now I can go and lose a lot of that money. And then also, this margin is not going to be this wide for these decryptors, because the difference between two different negative points of ME, so -4 and -3, is a 50% material bonus. My +2 and +3 is a 1% material bonus. So we'll see prices that are closer to here. And will it be worth it to maybe spend a little bit more to get more runs, to try and put more money in the machine, and maybe get a little bit of that extra job efficiency? Don't know. I don't have a tool for that math. I can't do that on a bulk scale. I'd have to go in if I wanted to do that, and this is going to hurt because I haven't opened it up in a while. I'm going to have to go back to the old school way of looking it up in EveHQ. And that sucks. So I still don't know what I'm going to do for my personal stuff. It relies on getting the SDE and the APIs. And I will be doing code development streams, I think, starting next week. I promised Fuzzy Steve I'd look at the new APIs this weekend, but I may not get to it as early as I expected. So now that we're nearly at the end of my stream, I can go ahead and give the final spoiler of what the real master plan is for me personally. And what I want to hitch my horse to is jump freighters. I believe that the new Thucker lab gives a very compelling reason to be building components in low-sec. Now, originally, when the Thucker lab was announced, it sounded like you could do all components at a Thucker lab and get the low-sec only bonus of, what is it, 10%? Let me check. A 10% ME bonus. And it turns out it's only capital ship components, but it's also advanced capital ship components. So I am wanting to get one of these and start doing some corp level industry with my faction warfare corp. We already have a moon mining operation, and that means that we already have dick-starred POSes. And on them right now, I have drug manufacturing arrays. But since I didn't need the bandwidth that those give me, because I can produce like 4 times more drugs than my corp will ever eat, they there is a little bit of spare CPU on my low-sec POSes. Also, I want to get the opportunity to expand our POS empire because after Mina being on my stream on Wednesday, he got into some of the speculation he's doing for Goonswarm. He talked at pretty deep in the West, and the West has if you overlay Goonswarm space and a map of where money moons are, they sit on the bulk of money moons. The CFC does, not Goonswarm itself. And so what they've been doing up to now has been they don't let the raw materials leave the base moon materials leave Declan. Every ounce of mined moon goo gets reacted into the top level advanced product. So stuff like nanotransistors and fullerides and tungsten carbide and all those level of materials. And then those are shipped out because they're more volumetrically beneficial. His plan is with the bonuses that come in nullsec to try and beef up Tech 2 production inside Declan. And by doing so, now the supply that should make a pretty decent dip in the JITA supply of those advanced materials. As supply leaves JITA for Declan, that will give more opportunity for people like PL or independent moon people who just do reactions to come in and fill that need. And that means that it will be more beneficial to be doing more moon reaction farming. And so that's a great activity if you have a PvP corp. If you're in a PvP corp and you already are stuck in low sec or null sec, it's going to be worth putting your eyes on moon reaction farming. And and I think that will also lead to some of alchemy coming back as well. So there's going to be a lot of work to do there, and since we already have the POSes, we might as well use them. And the hope is that we can then start leveraging some of the alt capacity we have in Corp, because people are always asking me, how can I build for Aderon? How can I, the lowly peasant, make the Corp a better place? And we keep telling them, get in fleet and kill things and buy contracts. That's really all you have to do. Go play the game. But people want to do more, so I'd like to do a jump freighter manufacturing facility. The specific details being that we would produce the Tech 2 components in low sec, which should be at a pace of 1 or 2 days a week. So we wouldn't have to keep those Thucker arrays up and on all the time, because they would be or we could keep them up and on, but we wouldn't have them filled. So they wouldn't be a giant bullseye on our back. And then ship the finished materials out to high sec or to a regular manufacturing array in low sec, because the build time is like 28 days right now. And the hope is that we could then turn that into an activity that people can participate in and a way to make money at an organizational level. We'll see how that works out. Jump freighters are a really weird market to be participating in because it's ridiculously expensive. And traditionally, and I have a graph for this, the reason I don't produce jump freighters today is that the price on the market tends to follow exactly the price of production that day. So it doesn't the market doesn't care that it takes anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to bring a jump freighter to market. It just cares that that this is the cost of the good, and so that is the cost of things. And as mineral prices have been deflating, and as moon prices have been wacky, it's been a bad place to try and invest in, because if you go in there with 10 billion ISK to build two at a time, you end up in this whole like, I have to sell the last one before I can build the next one because there's 6 billion ISK a build, and well, crap, I got into it when I thought I'd be making. So it is not a market for the faint of heart. And then, just as illustration, I'll share my my first jump freighter build and how bad my luck particularly is. So that is my master plan, hopefully building jump freighters. I still would like to stay in T2 because diversity is a good thing in manufacturing. If you put all of your stuff in one basket, you're going to have a bad time. I still encourage people to go look into other industry parts. Some other particular markets that I will be looking at are large guns, because the time to produce them is going to get so wonky that I expect a shortage shortly after patch and a price reset that should move the prices up, or at least the margins up. I still like producing Tech 2 frigates because they are popular, they have good niches, and they're still hard to produce in large quantity. Another thing worth looking at is anywhere that, if you guys are still looking at the ship sheet, if you see sections that don't have numbers, like if you see whole hulls that don't have margins, like the Raptor here, or the Flycatcher, or the Sleipnir, for instance, that I was looking at earlier, wherever that is. Oh, right, I can sort these now, can't I? So if we look at my personal favorite, the Sleipnir, we see that, well, only 60 are being sold a day. And oh my god, the margin is back. Holy shit. No, that's scimitars. I got all excited. Sleipnirs, there we go. We see that 30 are being sold every day, and there are 114 on market, so it's going to take a while for those to wash out. This is an example of a product that is being choked out by Tech 2 BPOs. I expect once the T2 BPO supply runs out that this price will reset. Diaz, the best place to go for information on that is the dev blogs. There's recently been a big post about the particular module pieces, so let me link that. So the specific module stuff is there, and the let me get the actual. I don't know if they did one that was specifically POSes. The simple matter is POS will become easier going forward. They'll be easier to own. You'll need less POS for what you need to do. You won't even need a POS to participate in industry, which is another point worth mentioning. You might get lower job costs and higher taxes at a NPC station. You might end up basically at parity using a POS, especially on. I'm not sure exactly on which jobs. Again, I need to get a bulk math tool like this one up and running, and so there's a lot of there's going to be. It should be a lot easier to get your hands around. As a closeout for the stream, I want to go and mess with the Thucker lab just to double check. Still no easier setting up a POS because, well, they're not changing any of that. Please. Again, since we still have 20 minutes left in the scheduled time, feel free to ask any questions and I'll try to answer them. Oh, and my computer is crying. Oh, I was hoping they'd put that totally tacky camo on the thing. So right now we're looking at a medium tower. We're onlining a bunch of labs just to play around with it. So in this case, we have everything here required to to work on jump freighters and, well, freighters in general. You wouldn't need a research lab per se, but I just brought it out to mess with the bonuses. I don't have all the parts I need to really experiment with this. Let's go... Also, I expect the first, like, 6 weeks, well, the first 4 weeks of the Thucker Labs to just be ridiculously expensive, and anywhere, if you see them, that people are going to go reinforce your POS if they see them, so use with caution. I'm hoping that being far enough off the beaten path that won't be a enormous bullseye on my back, but I honestly don't know. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to send them on here in the chat, here on Twitch through direct message, on Twitter at HLibIndustry. I'm in the tweet fleet constantly. My blog, which is all in the info on the bottom of the channel, at eve-prosper.blogspot.com. I'm LockFox in game if you want to get in touch with me, and I respond to everywhere, so feel free to poke and prod and ask direct questions, and I'm happy to answer questions directly if you have a specific issue, and also if you have general questions, I'm more than happy to take them as blog fodder. If we go and look at my I have a lot of notes for stuff, so I still have like 3 blogs that I want to draft up, and I have YouTube. I want to chop up the recordings here to YouTube in like 15-minute sections, and then I've got to I want to go schedule some of next week's streams to do just step-by-step walkthroughs, and then I can chop those up and put them on YouTube so they're only like 5 or 10 minutes rather than 1 or 2 hours. And if there's something specific you want to see, send that info to me, and I will take it under consideration. I will most likely do it, so don't be afraid to ask questions. Also, if you have any guest ideas, I've been bringing on the people I know who are pretty heavy in industry, but maybe you have a friend who is your corp's industry guru, or you know someone who's building super caps or something. I don't know. I'm more than happy to talk with more people. Like, for instance, I want to get Salpoon here in the chat has been a huge help getting set up on Singularity, and I'm expecting to have one stream in the next week or so where we talk about how do you play on the test server, how do you get the client, how do you test, how do you bug report, where are the resources. So stay tuned. The exact show information announcements go out on my Twitter, so if you follow there, that's the best place to get the first notifications. I really wish Twitch had like a calendar or a show schedule thing. Like, I don't know why that's not a feature. If they ever do that, I will totally I'll totally do that too. Oh, I thought I did, but I will update it. You're right. I don't have my YouTube in there. The YouTube is on the blog, but it's not on here. And it's also on the Hydrostatic podcast stuff I put up. So that's a good point, Alien Tarot. So I will go do that as soon as this thing is over. So I don't think tonight I'm going to be able to finish. Unless I got really lucky. Oh my god, there's actually here. Haha, sweet. Alright, I might actually be able to do this. So we have an Anshar blueprint, right? And if I queue that up in the industry pane, like so, we see that we need a bunch of these capital oscillator capacitor units, for instance. If I'm curious what it takes to make them, I can look at materials and it will tell me what it reprocesses into. I know Salpoon has been saying that we need to have a look at blueprint button, and I really hope they do that. That would be really cool. And but we can see that these have intermediate steps is the point. It's not clearly illustrated yet, but it's been stated that that's sort of the idea. So let's go get the blueprints we need. Researched. Oh, don't tell me they're not in there. Then the capital BPO one? Oh yeah, they must be. Yeah. Thank God. Oh, the other unintended consequence of making life easier unexpectedly is that oops. One of the things that's always bugged me about doing industry on TQ has been when they changed this user interface to be stacked like this. It was a pain moving stuff around lab to lab, and now we shouldn't have to do that so often. So this unified inventory should actually be added value as opposed to a hindrance. So that's another unexpected good thing. So we'll take our capital component blueprints and we will load up the job here in the thing and try to figure out what we need. So when we need dependent things, this is kind of a drawback of the UI, is that you expect that you can drill into each of the steps, and you can't. There's been some suggestions to make like the ISIS interface, which I don't know how to get to. There it is. Like this whole tech tree that you can go dig into and see your skills and all that. There's been talk that doing that for industry would be super useful. There's been no promise that that'll actually happen, so don't hold your breath. So let's see, we're going to need 709 reactors, and we're going to need 961 microprocessors, 577 thrusters, 961 cap, 4 armor, 6 What are they? Sensors. So if I just demo it now, I can do it live tomorrow. So that'll be on my to-do list. If we demo it now, we say we need 1394 armor plates, right? And it says we need this 2 million ceramic fibers and 2.7 million crystalline carbide. If I go and I demo the job, which I can do using the facilities pane, facilities, I can click the right button, and I say the Thucker Manufacturing Lab. Actually, I should probably write a before and after. So, right now in the I can validly install it where it is, where it lays thing, that says it wants 2.09 million ceramic fibers and 2.78. Whereas if I go and use the Thucker Lab, which I don't know if you have to double click to make it go. It never seems to click on the first click. Okay. If I use the Thucker Lab, we can see, well, oh man, we're saving big time. We've reduced our ceramic fiber need by 500,000. So we're at 1.57 million. And we've reduced our crystalline carbonide, whatever, by 750,000 units by only needing 2.09 million of them. The other thing you can look at is if we look at this final bill pane, it says, well, oh, that would cost 738 million. That's what the value of the raw materials are. And we can see the job cost is, 35 million with no extra stuff. I sort of expect that there should be. I don't know why there isn't. But if I go and I take that out, now my job cost is 500,000, and my price to produce is 984 million. It's like seriously half. Oh wow. That seems ridiculously not right. So, if these numbers are to be believed, if you try to produce a jump freighter in high sec, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to pay like 3 billion in fees. Wow, that's freaking terrible. So, I wonder if there's a... Oh, cool. There's none in the region out there. Furthermore, if I go and... that's not the bid window, that's the chartering window. I want to go find out if there's any I can bid for. I would love to be able to sort so I could see some of the really ridiculous ones. Can I see the really ridiculous ones? Well, that's sad. There's some really sexy ones in... like, there was a 20-something% one, wasn't there? Or am I just insane? I might just be insane. So if I go and try to find a team, for instance, and looked at one of the higher material efficiency ones, I could further lower my job cost. That's not doing exactly what I want it to do. So if I combine everything together, so that's a team with if I say I go get a team that has 5% and they don't 3%, and they have an 11% salary, but if I go and I look at those ones, those are even cheaper, so I might as well like bid on those guys. So if I go use these guys, they add another 6% to the job cost, which is actually positive. So I took 35 million job cost, and I use these guys, it's now 37. If I take them away, we go from 1.57 million on the ceramic fibers to 1.53. So if we go and we run the math, they've added 2 million to the job cost, but they have subtracted, so that's 719. They've subtracted 20 million from the job, and they'll subtract 20 million on every one of these jobs concurrently. So it'll subtract it from all the other component builds I'm going to do for the entire month that they are in my system if I win them. So it would be really great to have those guys. They could really I could pay out the nose for those guys. So if I'm saving 20 million a job, even if I move to back to the station again, yeah, okay, they're adding 30 million, but they're taking away not that much. They're basically paying for themselves on the first job. They're basically paying the job difference here. So it might be worth doing. It might not be worth doing. This is one of the pieces of math I really want to roll into a tool so that you can know the value of something and bid for it. Oh, that's too bad. Salpoon's saying that the mirror will reset that that particular bid. That's fine. I could also just as much pick these time efficiency guys, and now I've reduced the time by almost nothing. That sucks. Oh well, whatever. It should be interesting. I expect it to be interesting. I'm going to stop the stream and restart it again just so Twitch isolates it into one recording. I'll also stop my local recording. Feel free to keep asking questions. I'll be on for the next half hour again, and thanks again. I will go and update the channel panel in this time here. Feel free to continue asking questions. I'll probably just type in the chat. Follow me on Twitter at HLibIndustry. I will take questions. I will take suggestions. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow and next Monday and next Wednesday and next Friday again, because I'll be doing these pretty regularly until release. I'll be out for the for the Wednesday through Monday of the 4th of July. So, in case you're planning that far ahead. Expect next week to see more direct tutorials. I should be doing a couple of streams dedicated to just recording tutorials. Don't expect those out quickly. I should also be dedicating a show within the next week to the new API stuff and maybe the SDE, some code development, tool development. Expect that on a weekend stream. I'm hoping to get Fuzzy Steve online for that, and maybe K162 Space too. We'll also be continuing to live stream hydrostatic casts, so make sure to tune in for those. And if you guys want to get in on even more kind of stream ideas, feel free to send them along. I have some ideas that I'd like to do on the live server, like managing POSes, or maybe if an industrialist can PvP, you can too, kind of thing. Like, I have some ideas out there. I just haven't had time to put them together. So feel free to send ideas along. Thanks again for tuning in. Send questions, because I'll totally answer them. And see you guys when I see you guys.